flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We, first on the agenda is approval of the agenda. I have two requests to make a change. One is to add under presentations, welcome and introduction to our County Commissioner Representative Bethany Cox. And then I would like to pull number 6 from the consent agenda and put it in the regular agenda just for discussion and transparency. If nobody has anything else, I'll look for a second,
Second.
or a motion and a second, I should have said.
Motion to approve the agenda as amended. Support.
All right, we have a motion and a second to add those two items. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. So then, item C, we have approval of the minutes from the February 4th, 2025. That was in the packet presented to us. If we don't have anything that's outstanding there or needs correction, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the minutes from February 4 as written.
Support.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from February 4th. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. We have public comments and inquiries. And we have one from Susan Dunn. Ms. Dunn, if you would like to approach the podium, state your name for the record. You'll have 6 minutes to speak.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you ever so much for allowing me to sleep tonight. First off, I want to thank all our gentlemen who are going to be retiring this time from our fire department, and also Rick Gustafson, who was retired last time. So once again, I've known these people for many, many years, and I wish them well in their retirement. What I'm here tonight is something that that you pulled from the agenda, but I'm asking you to withdraw the item interfund loan and transfers for ballfield property purchase from the consent agenda. This was item number 6 under F. There needs to be open communication and active cooperation of the members of the community before any decision on finance is made. The developers of the Royal Gulf paid the city $1 million as they said they wanted the city to be able to develop ball fields they were destroying in the construction of the development down at Old Tartan Park. Your proposals called for not only spending the $1 million, but spending an additional $2.5 million for the purchase of the land. The amount of money over $3 million does not include any money toward development, maintenance, or upkeep. In order to pay for this purchase, the proposal was to borrow more than $2 million from the city sewer fund and having the residents repaying it over 10 years. The average home would be assessed $50 in 2026 and decreasing in 2035 to perhaps $37. We've had fees and before. In fact, many of us are still paying surface water fees that started out at $35 and now are over $90. So it's just something to be aware of. You recently discussed a strategic plan for the city. In it, you agreed to foster open communications and active cooperation with stakeholders. I assume that to be the residents. Perhaps I'm wrong. You agreed to manage capital improvement plan to align asset management and fiscal responsibility. You thought exploring alternate funding sources to reduce and eliminate the debt was a goal, and yet you have done exactly the opposite with this plan. Residents of the city have to live within our budgets, and so should the city. I suggest you buy as much land as you have money for at this time. If you wish to expand the purchase, you need to hold a community public hearing and listen to the wishes of the residents. You need to ask the residents, is this the correct time to be increasing their taxes for additional ball fields? And then listen to them. Thank you ever so much. Resident Ann Buchek, sent that, I believe, to each one of you. And it was just a cause of concern because many people are struggling now, and fiscal responsibility is something that I hold dear, and I think you do too. But thank you ever so much.
Thank you, Ms. Dunn.
Oh, by the way, I have been on the Parks Commission. I'm all for ball fields. I was on that commission for 16 years. So it isn't that I'm against ball fields. I just think we can probably do this in a smarter manner.
All right, so now we have some presentations. We have a couple of gentlemen that are retiring from our fire department, so I'll let Chief Kalis get up and do that now.
All right, Mayor and Council, I appreciate the opportunity to celebrate two very deserving retirements from the Lake Elmo Fire Department. Woody, come on up. First, we honor Chaplain and Support Service member Richard Woody Glanzer on his retirement. Woody joined the department in 2013 and spent the next 11 years as our department chaplain. As a chaplain, Woody would respond to critical incidents within Lake Elmo and our surrounding communities, to offer support to community members who were affected by some sort of tragedy. Woody has spent countless hours with our own staff counseling and supporting us when needed. Definitely, anytime he comes into the office, we'll come in and pat you on the back and make sure you're doing okay. So Woody, thank you and enjoy your well-earned retirement. We appreciate everything you've done for us over time.
Thank you, sir.
There you go, sir.
Thank you, sir.
You want to do photos after?
Just-
Okay, we'll hold off on, maybe to hang tight there, Woody. Next, we honor firefighter and support service member Richard Sachs Jr., badge number 60 on his retirement. JR began his career with our department in 1997 as a firefighter and retired December 31st, 2024 as one of our support service staff. We recognize JR for his 27 years of service to the city of Lake Elmo, the Lake Elmo Fire Department, and the citizens of our community. His hard work has always demonstrated a commitment to our motto, definitely proudly serving neighbors and friends. We have benefited from his extensive knowledge of our fleet and definitely our department history. He's been my go-to since I got here on who's this name and what this number means. He has always been willing to help out with whatever's needed. He has been an invaluable resource to all of public safety over the years, not including our department, but with the Sheriff's Department and EMS as well. The contributions he has made to our department will not be forgotten. Thank you and enjoy your well-earned retirement, JR.
Thank you.
A gift card from the city.
Thank you.
We'll come on up for some photos.
And thank those gentlemen enough for their service in the city, what they do with all the training and meetings they have to make sure that our public is safe. So, moving along, we have an introduction by Met Council District 11 member, Dr. Gail Cedarberg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, staff. I guess that's a way to empty the staff.
Yeah,
Empty
and
the room,
empty
right?
the room,
Just
right,
say
yeah.
Met Council and everybody goes. So I just do the page down arrow? Perfect. Okay, I don't need to turn on the subtitle thing. Anyway, thank you for the opportunity to come and present to you and introduce myself. I was appointed on the Met Council in 2023, and I make it my responsibility to come and visit with all my communities and introduce myself. I'm a real person, and I care about what's going on in District 11. I've met some of you at different Washington County meetings and on some groundwater meetings as well. What I want to say is, I'm your District 11 representative, but there is really a team behind here focused on District 11. Emma Dvorak is a senior planner assigned to District 11, and I know she's reached out to different staff at Lake Elmo and have worked on different projects. And then Elias Montesa is my communication specialist, and he helped set up this meeting and just checks my emails to make sure I'm keeping up with everything. So drafted, I don't know how to get this orange thing, but that's all right. Agenda, I just wanted to do introductions, tell you a little bit about myself, how I got into this field, who I am. I was born and raised in St. Paul, went to Highland Park High School, went to public schools, went to college in Minnesota, went to graduate school in California, and earned graduate degrees in environmental engineering, hydrogeology, groundwater modeling. And I grew up really having the best of both worlds, living in St. Paul and Highland Park, where if you had a bike, you could go any place, friend's house, library, Highland Pool, wherever, and then spend most of my summers up in northern Minnesota, in the woods, you know, where you take your shoes off Memorial Day, and you gotta squeeze them back in the shoes on Labor Day to come back to school. So when the seat became vacant for District 11, somebody called me and said, Gail, you should apply. I've been watching, and I've been living in Mahtomedi now for almost 30 years, and I've been watching the groundwater issues, the groundwater contamination issues, the PFAS contamination issues, and I thought this would be a good alignment for my expertise plus my passion. I have a 30-plus year career in remediating Superfund sites, brownfield sites, working on development, and things like that. Fast facts, I included some of this. A lot of people know what the Met Council is, and some people don't, but it's in your packet, so people of your community can look at this. 7 counties in the region, 116 Met Council district. Each district has a Met Council member assigned to them, 182 cities and towns, tribal nations, indigenous communities, and about 3.2 million people as of 2023. The 2050 plans have come out, and projected growth is about 600,000 people by 2050. So for me, on District 11, starting March 1st, I will be the chair of the Environment Committee, and I am on the Management Committee. So I've done a lot of work in working on large projects, so the Environment Committee is a great fit, but also the Management Committee is a great fit as well. I take managing financial projects, you know, to heart, and I've worked on $300 million projects and $5,000 projects, and how I've managed those have always been the same: transparency and spending every nickel like it's my nickel, no matter who's paying for it. I also am the council's representative on the Clean Water Council, and that's a statewide money, but there's a lot of money from the Clean Water Council that comes back into the metro region. And so I think a lot of people don't know that. I also try to stay abreast of most of the other council groundwater environment committees, and the one that you're affected by is the White Bear Lake Area Comprehensive Plan that meets almost every other month for 3 or 4 hours, trying to come up with alternative water sources. And then I participate in the Washington County Parks and the DNR North and East Metro Groundwater, just to, you know, keep an eye on what people are doing and try to bring those questions back if I have questions. History, it was founded in 1957. It really started out wastewater treatment. You know, it was like, if we're gonna build, does every little single town, community of those 180 each need their own wastewater treatment plant? The answer was no. So it was really a vision to say, let's, you know, pool our money and let's try to do the best system we can. And what was really interesting is the metropolitan region was ahead of its time when in the 70s it started separating out its sewer water from its wastewater. And if you look, we have some of the lowest SAC rates and charge rates for wastewater in the country because of that. We're not treating wastewater. I think it's really good. There is a Minnesota statute, so we've just finished and last week adopted our 2050 regional plan. So it says now preparing, but we have prepared it and it has adopted. And it really is to look at kind of the orderly development for this region. And I think, you know, I looked at, and on the very first page, I put Lake Elmo's vision for 2040. And if we look at this 2050 vision, my personal vision, the council's vision, and Lake Elmo's vision, they really do align with the council's 2050 vision. You know, another reason this really aligns with my vision is growing up as I did, I really, really believe that every person, no matter what age, no matter what ability, or if you're less able-bodied, pink, polka dot, green, large, small, you should all be able to live a really sustainable, healthy life, have access to clean water, be able to, you know, enjoy the parks. I have a very good friend whose husband is less able-bodied, but with these new, you know, chairs, track chairs, you can take people out who are less able-bodied and enjoy nature and things like that, playgrounds, et cetera. So when we talk about equitable, inclusive, and welcoming, you know, a lot of people, those are hot-button words to them, but really it means, does everybody in the region, can you be able to take part in how you want to live your life in this region? Get into nature, get on the bike trails you want, take the transit you want. We leave on addressing climate change. You know, as we're going forward, we have to look at these extreme storm events. And, you know, whether you call that climate change or not, it kind of is climate change. And so how do you plan for extreme storm events? I know when you're looking at developments and housing and roads, all of a sudden you have to catch more water. You have to infiltrate more water. And that's one example of addressing climate change. And protecting and restoring natural systems. If we in fact have contaminated something or destroyed something, how do we restore those systems? So the Met Council has land use planning, community development, housing, parks. Of course, Lake Elmo Regional Park is one of the stars of the metro region. Environmental services and water supply and transportation. I'm going to touch very quickly on each of those. So Lake Elmo is classified in their land use as suburban edge and rural residential. And I just pulled this out from your 2040 plan for your land use. And as we go forward with 2050, that'll be revised and you'll be able to develop things as well. I know you've got a new school that's going to be built, and I know that there was an example of where somebody from Lake Elmo reached out to me and said, what about the water, so we could build that school. And that's an example of where, you know, I may not have the answer for you, but if there's a question, you contact me, you contact Emma. We can reach out to the other people and the other agencies to help get you answers for what you need. And that's really, I can be a good liaison for that as well. Parks, lots of parks close to home. We had just had a new park plan, and there's money allocated for the expansion of Big Marine Park and the wildlife management area up there, as well as additional monies coming to Lake Elmo, and lots of money coming to Washington County. And really, it's pretty fascinating as to how many people use our regional parks. And the Met Council is really dedicated to keeping that funding going and to, you know, see what each neighborhood wants so people can enjoy it. So what's our water resource management? Everybody thinks it's wastewater treatment, that is part of it. However, it's also, there are funding and grants for water efficiency, and that was part of it is part of the proposed governor's budget, and also for private property inflow and infiltration grants. So what are inflow and infiltration grants? So those are your private septics or your public lines, that if you have groundwater going in or rainwater going in, then you're actually treating more water than the system needs to treat. So there's grants to help line those and minimize the excess amount of water that would be going into your private systems as well as your public systems. The water efficiency grants are, low-flow toilets and shower heads and things like that. The money goes to the communities, and then you as a community take applications and then give them to homeowners. White Bear Lake Area Comprehensive Plan, their Met Council is actually convening that. Met Council is not a utility, but we do look at water supply, and that is a big issue with the water supply. How are those neighborhoods around 5 miles of White Bear Lake going to need to look at new surface water supplies? And how is that going to be done? And that's a 4-year study. We're into our second full year of that. And those meetings are on the website, and they're open to the public. There's representatives from each community involved, and I'm not sure who from Lake Elmo is involved or if there's a person, but anybody listening to this can go sit in the audience and participate to find out what's going on. So I looked up, and it seems like this is one of your wastewater services planning projects that's coming up is the Lake Elmo West Connection project. And that looks like construction is gonna be finishing up in 2026 for that. I didn't see any other wastewater projects currently ongoing. Transportation, and again, it's like, things are happening in transportation. It's a little bit of a transportation desert out here in Washington County, but there's the planning side and the transit operations. So on this list, Met Council Transportation, the Gold Line opens March 22nd, and I have a map of that. 2025, you have Metro Mobility. I don't know if you're having any issues with Metro Mobility services. If you are having those, please let me know. There was some issues with not having enough drivers. And Transit Link is kind of a ride that you call for yourself. And then Microtransit, and I have some maps for Microtransit as well. So this was the Network Now concept plan. And if you look on here, north, we've got the Gold Line, south, you've got the Gold Line starting in Woodbury. It goes down across 94, and it stops in St. Paul. By 2027, that dedicated bus route, which is an express bus, will go down and stop at Allianz Field and go to US Bank Stadium. So you can park, actually, as a park and ride in Oakdale on the other side of 94, and then you can take the bus straight down. It's a little farther north. They put more of an express bus from Stillwater to Maplewood Mall. The bus from Maplewood Mall to Rosedale Mall has been restarted, which is good. And then the bus from Maplewood Mall that goes up to Century College has been increased to 15 times an hour, every 15 minutes. And so if you can take the bus up to Maplewood, you can get up to Century College. During the pandemic, that was kind of shut down and was once an hour, and students had to leave class and things like that as well. So if you look, okay, what are those green dots? What are those green areas? Well, actually, let me go here, okay, is south. I can go back up because you're really there. The green blob on the left, which is by Roseville, and the one on the bottom is Woodbury into Lake Elmo, is this Microtransit. And that's kind of like Dial-A-Ride. And that's started in January 6th, 2025 in Roseville and Lake Elmo. So so they're gonna be watching the ridership for that and, you know, see how it's going and if there's other demand to increase that or not. And then the other green dot by White Bear Lake is a projected, if those really go well, we would add it. And the outline for White Bear Lake is just a placeholder as we did it. And then south of 94 is the Southeast Metro Plan. They're adding in more routes down across east to west and down Robert Street and things like that as well. So I think, you know, I was out in Marine on St. Croix, St. Mary's Landing, and by the small towns by St. Croix, and they were pretty excited to be able to park at the Gold Line and not have to drive to Minneapolis or Allianz Field or downtown St. Paul. So I think that will be a really good thing to see. So this is this Metro Micro, it's a shared service, there's an app, and so there's the current boundaries for that, and like I say, we just started and I haven't seen the ridership numbers. The goal of this is to get riders to get to the bus stops and get to the Gold Line and use it. But it'll be really interesting to see because anybody can get the app and, you know, get a shared bus, whether you're going from South Woodbury to school, to the gym, to shopping, to back. And so I think, you know, it'll be really good. Recent accomplishments, we did pass the 2050 plan. We reopened the bus routes, the microtransit I've talked about. I think upcoming, continuing activities are the White Bear Lake Area Comprehensive Plan, capital program, construction opening up for the Metro Gold Line, and continuing to work on Metro safety, transit, et cetera, as well. Oops. So that's kind of some of the highlights, but really it's also to what can I do, what can our team do? You know, you have questions, comments, recommendations, so how I can be more effective. I'm willing, and so is Emma, to come to whatever kind of planning meetings, environmental meetings you have, show up at some of your events, any of those things, and then to reach out to me. And what I've, you know, been suggesting to people that if you are sending something to somebody within the Met Council, copy me, copy Emma. And if you don't hear, I will know about it, or if you forget to copy me and you go, you know, that person hasn't gotten back to me and it's been a week, they haven't even said, hello, I got your email, let me know. Because then I will follow up and will say, come on, you need to get back. You may not have the answer, but we did get your email and we're working on it. So that's kind of who I am. I have a passion for doing this and help, if I can be of any service, that's what I'd love to do.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Cedarberg. You have a question? Okay.
More of a comment. Thank you for that presentation. You had mentioned the water efficiency grants and multiple times the White Bear Lake lawsuit and the comprehensive group with it. And while we all can clearly agree that the lawsuit was irrational and is very counterintuitive, I think we all can agree on the importance of water efficiency. And one thing I am kind of hoping from the Met Council moving forward is that those grants can be expanded both in types and in usage, because it varies by community. You know, some communities aren't necessarily in need of changing out their toilets. In our case, yeah, the irrigation smart meters are very helpful. But something that we're definitely gonna be having more conversation of in this community is water reuse. And also, can we start to provide grants or figure out things to change out turf types to things that are needing less irrigation? And that's not something a city on its own can do. That's something where we need partners, and same thing for Washington County as well. I'm hoping our Commissioner Cox is here as well, that we can have those conversations, because the turf types and being able to conserve water in that regard matters. irregardless of the lawsuit itself. Those are best practices that we can do anyways.
And I appreciate that comment. There's two things on that. One, within the 2050 water policy plan and the water supply plan, different turf grasses and efficiencies and different ways are mentioned in that. And then as part of the Clean Water Council, which is statewide, they are funding different turf grasses that use minimized water through the University of Minnesota. So it is something that we are trying to find a solution for everybody in the state. And I think you're correct. That is I'll just say that I would love to see, a statewide water reuse policy plan. And I'm speaking for myself. But there is part of the water policy plan that talks about stormwater reuse. How do we start using that kind of water? And I know Hugo is doing that and has different piping in, but how do we incentivize that? And how can we, I think the more comments we have from communities, the more we can bring that forward and the more we can bring that into our grants. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you so
Appreciate it.
much for having me. I appreciate it.
Hold on, Andrew. I mean, she's already been talked about, it's technically your boss, right? So we should probably have her go first. So would like to introduce Commissioner Bethany Cox, so she can so everybody knows who she is, that she represents the city of Lake Elmo with Washington County now, and I'll let her do the rest.
Thank you, Mayor Caden Penn. My name is Bethany Cox. I am Washington County Commissioner. I'm attempting to fill some really big shoes as Commissioner Gary Kriesel has retired after 20 years. Spending a ton of my time in orientation, so I love the question, council member, and I took notes. I'm getting a lot of questions, and I just go back to our staff, and I kindly say, will you please help me through this, because I don't know even where to start. So happy to kind of tag along when Public Works and other county departments come and do presentations. So happy to be here. I also, I won't start, I was born and raised kind of conversation, but I've got 2 kids in the elementary school up in Stillwater, so we are a public school family. We use Lake Elmo Park Reserve probably every weekend. My daughter had her 10th birthday there last year, so super excited for the new playground equipment that's coming in. I don't know if anyone else's kids are that little, but really jazzed there. And so just happy to be here, happy to answer questions. My email is not on a presentation, but easily accessible, and the mayor has my cell phone number if you guys have any questions.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you stopping by and introducing yourself.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next we have an update on Highway 36 Lake Elmo Avenue Improvement Project. Mr. Geeson from Washington County is here with us today.
All right, good evening, council member. My name is Andrew Geeson. I'm a project manager for Washington County. And I'm also excited to be joined tonight by our newly elected Commissioner Bethany Cox. So today, I will be providing an update on the Highway 36 and Lake Elmo Avenue Intersection Improvement Project. And before I jump in, I wanted to share that we are not looking for any action from the council tonight, and this is simply an update on the project.
Andrew, could you click the little there you go. Thank you.
Perfect. So jumping in, I will provide an overview on the project background and need, review the project schedule, provide an overview of the engagement that occurred with the general public and our partner agencies on the project, review the alternative evaluation process, review the preferred alternative, share some updates since our last update to the city council, share some next steps, and open it up for any questions. So this project is located at the intersection of Lake Elmo Avenue and Trunk Highway 36. This is located along the border of City of Lake Elmo and City of Grant. And I think as most people know, this intersection has an extensive crash history. We see about 1 crash here every 2 weeks. And since the opening of the new bridge that connects Minnesota to Wisconsin back in 2017, we're seeing continued growth of use of traffic on Highway 36. And that's just leading to increased congestion and delay seen at this intersection. So touching briefly on the project schedule, the project team has completed our intersection study phase, has determined the preferred alternative for this intersection. And now we're moving into the final engineering and the process to acquire the necessary property for the project. Construction is scheduled to last 2 full construction seasons, kicking off in the spring of 2026, and wrapping up in the fall of 2027. So kind of moving on to engagement portions of our effort. To date, we completed 5 formal engagement events. The first was an elected official goal-setting meeting that brought together policymakers from the city of Lake Elmo, city of Grant, Washington County, and MnDOT. And then that meeting gave us really a great understanding of our partner agencies' goals and needs as we kicked off this project. So next, a formal project purpose and need statement was drafted and shared with the public. And through engagement with the public, that statement was finalized to state that the purpose of the project is to improve vehicle safety, vehicle mobility, and bikeability, or improve bikeability and walkability in the Trunk Highway 36 and Lake Elmo Avenue intersection area. Once we formally identified and gained support of the project's purpose and need, then we started the alternative evaluation process. This was a detailed 3-step, multi-year process that considered all possible alternatives. There was over 20 alternatives considered. Through that 3-step process, we held a series of public open houses to gather feedback on alternatives that were still being considered. And then based off a combination of input from the public, feedback from our project partners, and our technical analysis, a preferred alternative was ultimately identified and supported by the entire project team. So that preferred design includes Highway 36 being raised over Lake Elmo Avenue and grade separated with bridge structures. The project includes a new frontage road to be constructed on the south side of 36. And then there will be direct access to Highway 36 from the frontage roads. That would be with ramps that include full-length deceleration and acceleration lanes. So an update, over the last 6 months, the project team has also decided to include changes to the intersection of Keats Avenue as part of the project. So some background on that, MnDOT already had a separate project program for Keats, or for the Keats intersection. And really through our project's engagement efforts, through our open houses, we did hear from many folks from the community the desire to make changes at Keats Avenue. So this led to the opportunity to streamline improvements to both intersections with one project. So the project team, we started exploring what it would mean if we would combine those 2 projects. We reviewed this from an environmental front, a financial front, property impacts front, how it would affect traffic and do a traffic analysis. And then we also reviewed that from a constructability front. So through our review, we are recommending that the 2 projects be combined. And really this helps reduce overall project costs as well as impacts to the traveling public. So this will allow access from Keats Avenue to Trunk Highway 36 to be from our newly constructed ramps. And then we would close the Keats Avenue intersection to further improve safety in this area. So taking a step back, overall, the button hook design was selected as it makes a significant improvement to the existing area by improving overall safety, reducing congestion, and improving pedestrians' ability to cross Highway 36. We are doing that while minimizing overall project costs, minimizing acquisition of private property, and minimizing the overall project footprint. And again, I want to highlight that this button hook design has received consensus from the entire project team, including Federal Highway Administration, Minnesota Department of Transportation, City of Lake Elmo, and City of Grant. So again, some updates on the project since our last update to the council is the addition of the planned extension of the south frontage road to Keats Avenue to the project. I also wanted to note that this extension requires acquisition from 2 additional properties along the project. We are actively working with those property owners to acquire the necessary right-of-way. And I would say, generally speaking, both property owners are supportive of that frontage road extension. Moving on, we've also determined the appropriate traffic control at the intersections of the frontage road and Lake Elmo Avenue to be controlled with traffic lights. And we are actively working to confirm the extents of the necessary relocation of the existing city water main in the southeast quadrant of the interchange. I think initially we thought the majority of that would have to be relocated with the grading work in the area and the addition of that frontage road, but I think we're finding that less of it is probably gonna be impacted with our project. So more to come on that, but we're working with city staff to kind of work through that. So to close, we wanted to highlight some of our next steps, which include completing the required environmental documentation, obtaining all permits, completing detailed plans and specifications, acquiring all necessary easements and right-of-way. Once we have plans finalized, we will prepare cooperative costs and maintenance agreements for the city to review and sign. Next winter, we will advertise the bid package for contractors to bid on, and we'll seek city concurrence on the low bid prior to contract award. We plan to host a pre-construction open house in the spring of 2026 to share any planned detour routes and project contact information. And again, construction is planned to begin in 2026. And with that, I'm happy to stand for any questions.
Yeah, I have a question on that added scope to the project for that frontage road. Is MnDOT picking up the tab on that?
Yeah, Mayor, that's a great question. So MnDOT had $3 million programmed for improvements to Keys Avenue. MnDOT's actually bringing $6 million to the project, so they're bringing $3 million basically to pay for that additional scope increase, and they're also bringing $3 million. We had a small funding gap, I would say, on the project, so that's helping close that funding gap.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Holtz?
I presume the frontage road would then be a city-owned road?
Yeah, Mayor, council member, that's correct. That would be a city-owned and maintained roadway.
And the right-of-ways for that would meet our design specs?
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Thank you.
Anyone else? None, thank you. Nice presentation, appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now for Mr. Peterson.
He's not gonna know any more than Mr. Geeson does, so he's just here to look good. Well, we all have our days. All right, so we're all the way to item F. It's the consent agenda. Item number 2 is approve payment and disbursements. Number 3 is approve EDA work plan. Number 4 is approve planning commission work plan. Number 5 is approve Parks Commission work plan. Now, the number 6 is approve budget and amendments and fund transfers. Number 8 is approve job posting for public works seasonals. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Support.
We have a motion and a second for the consent agenda. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Consent agenda is approved. Going into our regular agenda, number 9 is accept 2025 street feasibility report and call for improvement hearing, approve plans and order ad for bids.
Mayor and council, I'll just note, that description that was just read by the mayor is, slightly inaccurate for what we're actually doing here.
I just read the script cards, Mr. Stanley.
You know,
If it's on the card, I'll read it.
But we gotta be real careful.
You have to be really careful.
Okay,
From there,
that's, what's that?
got it from there.
No, this is my first time, sorry. Are we good to go?
Yep, it's a PDF, so you just
Okay, perfect.
up and down here.
Yep.
through it.
Perfect. Okay, how's that?
We're not seeing it.
You're not seeing it?
No, there we go.
Okay.
There must have been a delay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very, very much. So, Mayor and Council, tonight, we have a presentation here regarding the 2025 street utility improvements, and we're asking for we're gonna be asking for some feedback on the preliminary design. I'll be presenting some information surrounding some options. And then what we're asking for, once we get that guidance, is to authorize final design. So no improvement hearing, no accepting feasibility report quite yet. So this map outlines the project areas. There is, I think, 5 or 6, and it's all generally kind of up in the northwest part of town there. Judith Mary Manor, Rolling Hills Estates, Prairie Hamlet, Lake Elmo Vista, Teal Pass Estates, and Irish Court. And where we are in the process tonight, again, we're presenting some preliminary findings and asking for some feedback. So the big issue here is not all neighborhoods, but some of these neighborhoods have an option to potentially extend city water main as part of this work. The roads also, the geotechnical characteristics of all areas also support not doing that and just reclaiming and rebuilding, adding curb and gutter and rebuilding the road. So there's a big difference between these two scopes cost-wise. So that's kind of what I'm going to focus on. Other parts of the project, other improvements to discuss are, there's some minor grade adjustments, evening out widths, things like that of the street, making sure drainage facilities are in order. I mentioned the geotechnical, and the geotechnical results have yielded that these streets are able to be reclaimed without full reconstruction. We are proposing new concrete curb and gutter as an edge treatment. Repair and improvement of existing storm sewer systems. There's no sanitary sewer proposed. This is outside of MUSA boundaries. And then I mentioned not all, but some of these areas have the potential for water main extension. And those are the 59th Street North, 55th Street North, east of Keats, and Irish Court. So we're gonna focus on those areas first. So as you may know, our trunk water main kind of runs in this pattern around town. And these are the areas where we are able to potentially extend water main into these neighborhoods. Pardon me. So neighborhood meetings were held for these 3 neighborhoods towards the mid part of January through the tail end of January. There is PFAS in the area, each neighborhood area. The meetings were sparsely attended. One meeting had no attendees. So we have been getting feedback as we've come up to this meeting tonight, and that has been put into the record. So let's start with 55th Street. Now, I will apologize, in the council item that was put together in this, it's the same information, but it's in a slightly different order. So if you're looking at your council item and then back at the presentation, I can assure you the numbers match, but they are in a different order. So 55th Street, what we're looking at here really is that this is in the case of water main being extended. The assessment per unit just to extend the water main is $46,000 per house. Additionally, the street reconstruction costs are, almost $45,000. So we're talking about in excess of $90,000 here. And then there are additional costs that, are not necessarily part of the assessment, but are incurred by homeowners if there is a water main extension, such as that are listed on the slide. There's area charges, connection fees, and just the cost of a private plumber to come in and reconfigure, that's thousands of dollars as well. So that's under the scenario of the water main being extended. That same project, that same segment of street, under the reclaim option and not extending water main, you can see the assessments are significantly less. It's an assessment of $22,300 as an estimate, rather than what we were talking before, in excess of $90,000. Let's jump to the 59th Street Court. Again, same scenario, the water main assessment. And let me clarify one thing too. you'll notice that the street reconstruction and the street reclaim are two different numbers. That's because when we do go in and excavate for water main construction, we disturb soils down below that we know are there that are unsuitable. And so rebuilding the road becomes a more expensive endeavor. Reclamation, we stay in those upper levels of the roadway base, and we can avoid getting into those poor soils below. Big cost savings there as well. So again, we're seeing, let's call it, $39,000, $38,000 here for the water main option. Not even $7,800 for the road reclaim, just the road reconstruction. Last one on the water main, Irish Court. The costs are, $45,000, north of $45,000 plus, again, I'm not mentioning every time, but those additional fees for plumbing and area charges. And if we simply do the reclaim, we're under $11,000. The other neighborhoods that are included in this project, there's no water main available in the area to extend. So it's been lighter duty at this point. Again, we'll come back with more information with the feasibility study next time. Excuse me, but those assessments are pretty much in line with what we've been seeing for the reclamation assessments that have just been presented. So the total project cost was budgeted in the CIP as about a $2.6 million project. With the we did have some water main extension budgeted too. You'll notice that if we do stick with the reclaim option, we do align with the budget from the capital improvement plan. I mentioned before that we are putting in a B-style curb. A B-style curb is a kind of the standard, looks kind of like a shoe that you see out there. It's not the slanted edge that you can, the surmountable or mountable curb, but only a 4-inch, so it is easy to be. It's pretty easily mounted by a vehicle in the need of or the desire to get over the curb. However, it is still found to perform better for winter maintenance and traffic control, just in general. So we are proposing some parking restrictions as part of the curb installation. Any cul-de-sac or turn area, and then single-side parking where streets are 24 feet or narrower face-to-face. And I'll just step through. So this is Irish Court. You can see around the cul-de-sac. I'll just quickly do this. Some of the areas here. The highlighted yellow is the proposed no parking. Okay, so I've said it a couple times now, or have alluded to it, but just these assessments are for the water main are so high that we're actually recommending folks that we move forward with the street reclamation option for each area. Again, we hadn't received a ton of public input. We had, and the meetings were sparsely populated, or sparsely attended, but the general feedback from those that did reach out to staff while we were doing this has been, that's just too much money. We just, can't afford that. So we're asking, we're recommending to not extend and to authorize final design for a budget of $121,500 based on reclaim. And I am here for questions, comments, any feedback. I also have Jack flanking me tonight, so just in case, this is my first one of these with you guys, and he's got all the history, so.
Any questions for Mr. Stanley? Looks like I got a couple of people that wanna, let's do this. Mr. Stanley, we got a couple of people that wanna talk, and if that
Okay.
generates a couple questions, we'll holler at you, okay?
Very good. I'll just leave the slideshow up for the moment, just
That's
in
fine.
case we wanna flick back to anything.
Perfect. So, when I call your name, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record. I'll give you 6 minutes to talk. There's no back and forth with the city council at that point, but we will take into consideration your comments regarding the topic. So, Jennifer Anderson?
Good evening. My family and I are 100% in favor of replacing the roadway pavement on our street. Every spring after the snow melts, our street is riddled with potholes. It's a challenge to dodge the potholes to avoid damage to our cars. While the city has done a great job of patching the potholes, the road is now at the point where there's more patches than original pavement. The road is extremely bumpy, and to state it simply, the time has come to improve our road. At this time, however, we are not interested in the option of extending water to our home. We ask the council to vote in favor of improving our road, but not burden us with the cost of extending the water. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Anderson.
Oh, I forgot. I live at 9800 55th Street North.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Catherine Todd and Holden Todd.
Thank you very much. I'm Catherine Todd. I live at 9961 55th Street North, and we would confer with the staff. Our road absolutely needs to be reclaimed, and we're happy to see that being done. We have significantly invested in our own water and our own water treatment, and the cost associated, we have 5.5 households that would incur that huge cost, which is extreme for each of us. And out of all 5 of us, there isn't one homeowner that we spoke with that wanted water sent to their home. Everyone would like you to keep it as is and reclaim the street. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Todd.
Thank you.
All right. Given that, are there any questions for Mr. Stanley? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Well, I guess I'll just bring up
Got
one
one?
thing here.
Okay.
So just, I think in the past with some of these water main extensions, was it grant funds that did cover all of the costs of the water main extensions for some of these previous ones we did?
I'll defer to Jack, but in chatting it over with him earlier, I believe it was, if not all, it was largely,
Okay.
funded by the state, and, that pot of money is run dry.
Okay,
Yep.
got it.
Yeah, that's.
I
that
know
was-
we had kind of had that
that was-
conversation about that.
That was, it also not only took care of the road, or the water connection, but took care of the road as well, because the
That's
road
right.
needed to be done. So,
Okay,
that's why that was the way it was.
okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay.
Move to approve the preliminary design findings and recommendations and authorize final design for the 2025 street and utility improvements.
Support.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Councilmember Holtz?
Just thank you to Ms. Anderson, Ms. Todd for attending. This is an hour into the meeting, so thank you for providing feedback. And we also received feedback by email. I fully agree. As much as I do long-term want to try to make sure from a sustainability standpoint that city water is going to places where we know there's PFAS today or likely in tomorrow. The cost for this, because there's not a PFAS grant for it, would be absolutely absurd for homeowners and is not okay. There's a reason for it. Engineers cost money, but it's not sustainable for homeowners. So I appreciate staff's work on this, and the recommendation, I think, is the right one.
Yeah, I'll just say that, yeah, good job. I think if it's not needed, people have done things to their water system to make sure that they have clean drinking water. And, until we have some sort of treatment plant, we're not certain that all of our water is going to be clear and free into the future. So, I've been on these roads. I think they are part of our pavement management plan, and getting those back into play and creating that curb and gutter to help with the long-term viability of the road is something I certainly agree with. So, With that, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next on our agenda is adopt strategic plan.
All right. Thank you, Mayor and Council. It is my pleasure to be presenting the 2025 strategic plan. First, I just want to pause and look at this picture. While I know everyone was super excited to have their picture taken, to me, it really is powerful when you look at all the folks there, all the years of expertise and their dedication to the community. It's really powerful to look and see all of the people that joined us for 2 nights in a row, taking time out of their family lives to discuss the future of the community of Lake Elmo. So I'm really proud of that. You do have the full strategic plan document in your packet, but the point of the plan was to develop the long-term direction and the values and the way we're going to conduct our business going forward. And we did discuss, we had lots of discussion before and during the meeting about our current conditions, and then ultimately we did develop the plan. So just a reminder of everything that everyone participated in. There were some questions sent out by the facilitator that everyone had the opportunity to comment on, and that really helped us to get some of our grounding for our work. I think that you would probably agree with me that the 2 nights were pretty jam-packed, and so it was good to have that feedback up beforehand as well. And then we did hear from lots of our department heads and our contract staff and our commissioners that gave us a lot of great information and presentations to move forward with our discussions. And I think what was really nice about this process was having the small group discussions and then the larger group discussions as well. I have to thank our new communications coordinator, Kathy. She did prepare this visual that does show how we ended with our core strategies and how they are kind of all intermingled together. So you'll probably be seeing this a lot going forward, as well as our 3 new values in the middle. I just want to go through our core strategies, and then also below them, you'll see that our strategic objectives that support how we are going to carry out our work. So our first one is build a vibrant, inclusive, and connected community through celebration, engagement, and shared spaces. And below, again, you'll see how we're going to do that. I probably don't need to read them to you since you can see them. But on our next slide here, we have identified our short-term goals that we're going to work towards in the next couple of years. Now, I will say with our short-term goals that we came up with, sometimes they fit into, they can fit into one or more of the strategic objectives. So this one, we did put under our first community engagement, which was to develop master plans, including community engagement for recently purchased 77 acres and existing 180 acres. This goal was supported by at least 3 council members as well as staff. Our next core strategy is to manage growth with purpose and intent. And here, our goals that we did come up with as a group are to develop a vision for the comprehensive plan, including future MUSA area development, develop the old fire station site. And I will say that the 2 there were the high priorities with, again, the 3 at least 3 council members, and then staff supporting it. And then the next 3, which are grayed out, had support of at least 2 council members. So create working group of the property owners in this little area here. And then to start development process for 180 acre site. And then also explore the development plan for the future of the old city hall. Moving on is our balanced finances consistent with current needs and future growth. And our goals here are to develop comprehensive financial strategy that encompasses multiple long-term goals, analyze and assess water, sewer, and streetlight fees, and then also adopt CIP to include deferred maintenance on city buildings. Our next one, and these do not go in priority order, they are all equal. Maintain responsive, transparent, and adaptive governance. And this is where we talked about keeping our external and internal communications fresh and innovative and connecting with all ages and cultures. Our next core strategy is to deliver efficient, reliable, and innovative public services. And some of our short-term goals here are to seek community input on fire response, examine and meet staffing appropriate for desired service level needs, including the police and fire, based on current and future service level expectations, and to improve our GIS mapping. Our next core strategy is to build and sustain resilient infrastructure to support a thriving and sustainable community. And here we will continue to address water appropriations and PFAS with the appropriate agencies and promote water conservation, as well as identify location for water treatment plant. Now, all of our core strategies and our strategic objectives do support our mission. We didn't really take a whole lot of time to review our mission, but this was our current mission, all of our strategies that we talked about do support this. So nothing was changed on our mission. For our organizational values, we did pare it down from 9 to 3. And so while this may be the first time you're seeing it, I'm interested to hear any feedback if you do have. But I do think it encompasses everything that we had identified in 9 as well. So excellence, integrity, and service. I think kind of a fun little activity that we did through our goal setting was breaking up into groups, maybe not fair numbers since we had a lot more staff than council and commissioners, but I'm talking candidly to each other about our roles and responsibilities. So here is just a list of some of those things that were said to each other, and we have that in our plan as well.
You missed, I think, inspections from staff was, healthy treats was in there, if I remember correctly.
I know,
I didn't make it?
no, but we all know.
Sorry, Clarissa.
We were
Don't
all
want
there.
healthy treats.
Yes, that is an important one, you're right. So going forward, for implementing this, is just gonna be, linking our long-term direction, which is our core strategies, and our strategy objectives to our short-term action plans. This document does serve to guide us if there were some uncertain times. But what is important going forward too is the shared vision, and sharing that with our organization so everyone is on the same page as well as our community. We will move forward with developing action plans and some action steps and come forward to council with our resource needs, as well as implement and then monitor progress, probably with quarterly updates. Oops. So with that, any questions or comments?
I saw Councilmember Holtz writing down vigorously, so I know he has a question.
So where are those treats? No, so obviously this, what gets passed will go on the website, and then what other means will we have for, increasing access for this? Because I I fully plan on voting for it. It's a fantastic plan, but what other ways will we have to help ensure that, you know, there's a volume of information here that we're able to communicate that to the community?
Yeah, yeah, so our plan will be to keep this at the forefront on what we do. We'll probably, you know, it will be on the website, but being able to break it down to digestible chunks and where we can communicate to our community about our progress being made, but again, quarterly updates to the council, which again will also be in the packet. And we'll also incorporate our 3 new value statements, you know, which guides us on how we're gonna do our work too, so we'll make sure to incorporate that.
Would it be reasonable to presume on random agenda item next month that if it happens to hit home on one of those short-term goals that, you know, the packet's gonna say, by the way, this originates with,
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. I actually was looking at probably adding our core objectives to our council memos so we can identify, you know, one or more of the objectives that our item does relate to.
yeah, because there absolutely there could be multiple with a single
Yeah,
project.
yep.
Thank you.
Anyone else? No, I just, yeah, Councilmember Dragisich.
I agree with my learned colleague next, that communicating to the public will be key, and maybe like in our newsletters or in our freeze, things of those nature, so people know we have adopted a plan, and here's where you can find it, here's some of our key points. I think it's real important, because we do hear a lot of, you know, what do you do for planning and that kind of stuff. And it was a very good exercise. I compliment you and the staff for the efforts you did in putting it together. I think it was very beneficial for all of us who attended.
I did have a comment, but I didn't want,
Go
go
ahead.
for it now, all right. Again, I wanted to thank Nicole and everyone for doing this. I know I really appreciated the time getting to spend with everybody. I think one of the activities that I really did appreciate the most was when we talked about the roles and expectations of the staff and city council. I thought that was really powerful, and I learned a lot from that, so I thought that was great. I really appreciated the opportunity to set the short-term goals for the next couple of years. And work through those deliberately. I think that was important. I think one thing that was important for me moving forward is I love that we have these goals. I also want to remember that other things are going to come up. And just because that these goals are what we set today, I don't want that to mean we can't have other goals that come up and that we can't bring those to the forefront of what's actually more important. So I just want to mention that early. I know that was kind of one of the things that I saw happen with our last strategic plan is we had our goals set, and if something would come up that maybe wasn't originally on one of those goals, but it was something that we didn't foresee at that time, it was almost like held against us to move forward with that goal. So I guess I'm just kind of making that known right from the get-go that just because these are our goals, I don't want that to hamstring us from being able to pivot and change as things change over the next 2 years.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree. And also having those core strategies, you know, if we can lean on that, if it aligns with that. But also our job as staff is if the council wishes to pursue something, that we would come to you with our recommendations and resources needed. So then you can make that decision.
Yeah,
But
I know
don't-
that's super
yeah.
helpful, those the resources needed, because I think it's easy for us to sometimes forget or misunderstand, you know, what the resource is necessary for some of these different projects that we bring up as the years go by here. So, yeah, that is super helpful to really have an understanding of the resources needed for anything that we do try to add on to your plates as we go over the next couple of years.
Yeah, yep, and also to that point is that the short-term goals that we have identified, there might be some that take a different route or that don't come to fruition in 2 years, you know, so it's a guiding document.
And I thought the 2 days was much more beneficial than 1 day, so thank you for pushing for that. And
Thank you for attending
Yeah.
2 days.
Yeah, I thought it was nice to have 2 nights instead of trying to cram it into 1 night. And I think we got a lot more covered. So with that, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to adopt 2025 Lake Elmo Strategic Plan.
Support.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I would add to that, the 2 nights was fantastic. We had original discussion as to whether it was worth spending the money for 2 nights and having a facilitator. It was the right decision to do it. This is a quality product. And honestly, between yourself and now having someone in communications, like that itself, having visuals, literally having a visual, like something that should, I think we sometimes take for granted, but that takes work. And it, honestly, that is a fantastic plan, and it's in-depth. I agree with Councilmember Hearn, there's flexibility in here, but as you said, there's the core structure to grow from and to act upon. Everything comes to those core values. So the work done, and for all those who attended, thank you for all that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passed. Thank you very much. Next, we have approved finance software purchase.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We've been talking about this for a while. Nina and I are super excited. So I'm asking this evening for you to approve our purchase of financial software. I did just a quick presentation. Feel free to stop me. I'm just going to buzz through this really fast. But of course, the objective of the software is to more fully integrate and make our processes more efficient. It's been mentioned in audits for the last couple of years how we have separate utility software from our financial software. We also have a lot of our processes that just live in spreadsheets, and then we have to try and reconcile between all of these systems during the audit. So it's extremely time consuming. So we will be eliminating a few duplicate entry processes, minimizing opportunity for fraud, theft, and mistakes. Is a huge part of this, and then just sort of moving towards a more centralized source of vital information, not just on the financial side, but even there's an HR module that we will be incorporating, so that'll be a big part of it, and then also tying our permanent data retention system, Laserfish, to our financial system and our HR system as well. So this will affect pretty much every single process within finance as well as other departments as well, as I mentioned, HR, and then of course, any department that has financial processes within them, including payroll, AP will be a big one, annual budgeting will be a big one, et cetera. Our purchasing process, we've been working on this for quite a few months. We've researched the top software companies in the area. Nina talked to a number of cities. We spoke with our colleagues at the convention and such. We spoke with the accounting firms. I've actually also done a similar project for another city as a consultant, so I had some background there. We determined our internal goals for our new software, so which improvements in functionality are going to lead to sort of maximize our added efficiencies. We had some initial virtual meetings in quotes from our top 3 companies, which were BSNA, Cassell, and Tyler. And then we had in-person full-day demonstrations where all of the department heads and some other staff, all of finance, of course, were invited with our top 2, which were Tyler and BSNA. And then we had some additional negotiations and questions with both of those companies. In the end, we are recommending BSNA, both for price and for mostly for functionality. The table shows the various quotes that we got. This obviously is a very large investment for the city. It will increase our annual fees, but again, we will see significant improvements in efficiencies, which will also add resilience in the case of staff turnover. Upfront costs will be around $124,000. So that will be split up a little bit. I had originally budgeted for $200,000 over 2 years. And this was coming out of a split between the general fund and the water fund. However, it looks like we might be able to get it implemented this year, which would be really exciting if we could get it done before audit next year. So I might come back to you later for a budget amendment. If we can get that done, we need to pay for it as it's completed. We are looking at some additional costs that are to be determined. We'll have a little bit of hardware probably, and then some additional workflows and integrations that I'll have a better idea of later on. And that's the quick summary of this. Does anybody have any questions?
Of
Yes,
course
sir.
I would, right?
Of course so.
I was just wondering why we're not charging any of the costs to the other utility funds, sewer and stormwater.
Great question. We could,
I mean, they'll all benefit from it.
sure. We certainly can.
Councilmember Holtz?
With BSNA, have there been other cities where we've able to ask them what that transition looked like when they went from their legacy system to BSNA? And are there lessons learned, or all was roses, or just things to pay attention to, especially when transferring the legacy data over?
Yeah, I mean, we spoke to a number of cities, and the most rave reviews we got were about BSNA. Even Metro INET, Roseville just recently went from Springbrook, which is what our current software is, to BSNA. And I don't think I've heard of a single poor review about them. So we'll certainly, it's not going to be a perfect transition, right?
Yep.
But I'm pretty confident in it.
What's
yeah.
their commitment then in terms of that transition, especially when moving that data over?
In terms of,
I mean, do they commit that it shall be up and in place within 6 months or within 3?
they'll give us
Because
a
there's,
ballpark timeline. So right now, and as soon as we get our contract in, we'll have a better idea. So they were kind of ballparking around November.
if
And
they,
so,
oh, sorry.
yeah, we'll know more when we get going. But we'll have essentially a goal. Obviously, we'll need some flexibility. Some of it will be determined by us. You know, are we getting them the information? Is there anything within Springbrook that creates a barrier, or Banyan, or whatever?
It was very good to know that Roseville did that exact transition.
Yeah, yep. And so Metro INET had kind of nudged us in the direction because of that, and some of the things that they've experienced with some of the other software even, so,
Thank you.
yeah.
I see there's a noticeable difference between the annual fees between BSA and the next one in the order of like 15,000. Can you kind of comment as to some of the major differences in that, what that annual fees included that may not be in Cassell?
So I tried to kind of summarize these expenses in, I think it might be the first attachment, because while we are trying to do an apples to apples comparison, sometimes they call them different things. And so this was kind of how I broke that down. They all have various modules, and I tried to kind of name them the same. And honestly, I don't know that I could explain it really well as far as the different costs, other than, you know, sort of breaking it down by module. We tried to compare. Most of the comparisons had everything largely the same as far as module to module. BSNA actually has a couple of modules with the special assessments that we added that were not available even in the other softwares.
Okay. All right. And then I have a question regarding the contract. I see that council has made several comments throughout the contract, and I want to make sure that we will get those in place in the document.
Yes, my
before signing
apologies.
anything.
I was supposed to get a completed, so I had the contract reviewed by the leagues. They have a free contract review service that they provide. So Chris Smith provided a number of comments, which I sent to BSNA. BSNA adopted anything that's sort of that red line added to the paragraph has been added by BSNA, and that's what we're expecting to be in the final contract. They did not send me one with those committed, and I couldn't accept the changes in
In particular, the
mine.
governing law being in Minnesota versus Delaware is
That
of
will be.
interest to me.
Yep, yeah.
Okay. Delaware's just a holding house for people that don't like to pay taxes. There was another one, the indemnification language is always a big deal. You know anything about that, council?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I did review Chris Smith's comments, and I agree with them, and I do think the indemnification language does need to be changed in accordance with his comments.
Yeah, I would want to make sure that that's always something that I find to be very important.
So which section is that?
I think
12.
12.1, there's a long comment there.
And so was that, is there a red line?
Not so much as, I don't think it was a red line.
12,
I think it was a total replacement.
Yeah, it was a replacement, it looked like.
So it doesn't look like BSNA provided any changes for that. Sarah, do you think you could work with me on seeing if we can get that?
Sure.
Got
I also I reviewed this contract on behalf of another city, so I have some additional comments I might want to share with you on that Chris Smith didn't add to his review.
Perfect.
Thank you.
You have any others in there?
Oh, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
something, go ahead.
Yeah, a few questions. So back to the annual fees, so the prices that we see on there, is that expected to stay the same? Are those expected to increase year over year?
I would expect them to increase.
I guess there's no
year over
grandfathered
year.
in type rate, it's gonna increase along with inflation, is what we'd
Correct.
expect with that.
Yep.
Okay, you mentioned, the employee turnover is kind of maybe like a return on investment type of aspect of it. Can you speak to that a little bit? I mean, has that been something that's been brought up during exit interviews? Is that something that's been brought up in meetings?
Not here per se. I've obviously only been here for a couple of years. I can speak to my own experience. Nina, you could probably agree to me, being also new, is that anytime when you come into a new organization and there aren't really clean processes, and if your software isn't intuitive, if it's not kind of like somebody else, everybody else's software, I've been using QuickBooks for 30 years or whatever. And so when you open a software and things just aren't where they're supposed to be, right? It's just really hard to learn. So when I'm talking about turnover and resilience and that kind of thing, if your process is well documented and it's intuitive and it's understood by everyone, and it's integrated, there's not weird stuff that you have to kind of figure out and compare. It's significantly more efficient.
Okay. And then the example was given in here as well of the transition for Roseville, where they went from, I believe, using the same system we're using now to BSNA. Again, can you speak to that a little bit? Is that apples to apples? Like, was Roseville using, because again, it seems like right now we have kind of a few things pieced together. Was Roseville in a very similar situation? Did they have other softwares that they were augmenting before the transition?
I'm not sure who they had for UB, utility billing, sorry. I just know that they went from Springbrook to BSNA. I would say that largely cities have similar processes. We have a little bit of a unique situation here with our escrows because we have so much development. That we have this really inefficient process for escrows where we have duplicate entry into an Excel spreadsheet, and then we do mail merges for invoicing, and so it's just a little silly, honestly. So I'm not, I couldn't really speak specifically to
And would you
theirs.
say with the escrow, I mean, has that cost the city money, missing out on, missing items because of that, because of the system? Maybe just lost time, and that's the expense? Again, I'm just trying to
Yeah.
justify that, I mean, it's over $100,000.
Sure.
Or I guess over 30,000 extra per year that we'd be paying for it relative to what we're doing now. And I'm trying to justify that difference.
Sure. So I would say not things that are missed, because Mike is probably the most thorough and accurate person I have ever met in my life. But without him, it might be different. So really, that particular process does largely come down to efficiencies, and then also sort of being able to reconcile between the processes. And so making sure, I should be able to easily reconcile between these processes without spending a significant amount of time, and I can't do that now. So just being able to kind of track that. And
Okay, sorry, can I ask one more?
I suppose.
Thank you. So with the audit as well, is this something from the previous audits that we feel that this is gonna improve our rating? And again, trying to say, hey, like, well, is this gonna give us a better rate for
No.
loans? I mean, is it gonna have any impact from that standpoint?
I don't think it would. We've got a pretty good credit rating that has more to do with other things, so.
Okay. Was this something that was brought up in the audit?
I believe, I said it, and I'm pretty sure it was mentioned. I'd have to
Okay.
go back and look. But anytime that you don't have, sort of integrated systems and stuff, there's that opportunity for fraud or mistakes. And that is typically something the auditors will call you out on, so.
I'm done.
I'm glad Councilmember Hearn brought up the annual fees. So I was looking at section 7, and I don't know if this is something council has looked at, but 5% annually, at least greater of 5% annually, or the annual increase in the relevant consumer price index for all urban consumers, which I don't know what the heck that means, but I think 5% is pretty generous. I don't know if that's similar to what Roseville had. But if that's more in lines with that, I think typically we see, at least in my industry, increases of 3% annually on something that's ongoing, but I'd like to have somebody take a look at that and make sure that we understand what this consumer price index for all urban consumers published by Bureau of Labor and Statistics really means and what that shows.
That's the CPI.
That's the CPI.
I read about it all the
And
time.
that's standard, and does it usually greater than 5% or not?
It's all over the place. We talk about the inflation we had the last, some years it was like 9%, some months,
Yeah,
It's hovering in the, I think about 4% range. Now it's inched up a little bit.
yeah.
But the Bureau of Labor Statistics puts out every month.
So in your experience, do you find that language to be pretty common within contracts such as this? Okay. I would like to see that. I'd like to see what Roseville had and make sure that we're in line. And I'm not opposed to the private industry making their profit. That's what they do. I get it. But at the same time, I want to make sure that we're paying fair dollar value for what we get.
And that is saying, I mean, at a minimum, 5%.
At a minimum,
Yeah.
5%.
I mean, that does,
I-
thanks for catching that. That does seem,
Just
like you
seems
said,
a
generous.
little on the high end for me.
Sounds like you need to table.
I think we could, we could do a motion and then discussion.
Question, timing-wise, if hypothetically this was tabled for the intent of clarifying the 5%, making sure some of the legal stuff was put in there, how does that affect timeline in terms of some of the goals that the city has currently?
The timeline was really sort of a guess at any point. So until we really get our contract in, we won't really know what they have kind of in the hopper. So if we need to delay it by a couple weeks, I don't think that's the end of the world.
Okay. I'm gonna make a motion to table this item until at which time we can have a fully agreed upon contract.
second.
All those in favor of tabling till we have a fully agreed upon contract, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So it is.
Was there enough feedback then for the contract?
I think so. If there's not, please tell us now.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I haven't reviewed the contract, so I will need to do that.
Okay? Well, sounds like you can take your notes from the other one and,
Yep.
right. Appreciate it, thank you. It's important stuff, it's longstanding cost. While I agree that it's gonna be very important for the actions that we do, I just want that table stakes understood at the beginning. So we
Sure.
don't, so we don't get any surprises.
I get it.
All right.
Thank you.
So we pulled something, and a lovely member of our audience decided not to stick around for the approve interfund loan and fund transfer for ball field purchase, Resolution 2025-016, even though this is an item for our finance director. I just wanted to, seems to be a conception that maybe some of this was not being transparent, and so even though the purchase of these properties was agreed to, or a purchase agreement was back on the January 7th meeting and discussed by council, it's really for the ability to look at the time when property was being sold and interest was sold, interest of it being sold, when we did a search for community park to use the Royal Development Funds for ballparks. And, you know, in that discussion, if I remember correctly, I'm not gonna get it all, so feel free to help me out if you guys feel the need to. Preserving open space next to one of our very premier natural resources, Sunfish Lake, and the ability to provide some community space that includes ball fields for our ever-growing community. Like I said, from when I started here in 2005, it was around 6,600. We're at around 14,500 now and expected to grow beyond that. So for a community to have a large area for sports activities, community activities, things of that nature, I think is important. And we're not looking at just what is for today, but what will be tomorrow and beyond. So this is not only for the people that live here now, but for the people that will plan on moving on here. And I think it has an opportunity to be a very special place. But again, that will get community comment on it to see to make sure it's what the community wants. But the land became available as opposed to letting it go to a potential housing development in a rural transitional area. Was deemed that the opportunity is there, and if it's the community decides ultimately that's not something it wants for now in the future, then we'll have to pivot. So that's kind of why this is, and this is just the interfund loan and fund transfer is a way to handle that purchase for now. And obviously, we'll have to look at ways in which this area can be funded and maintained into the future. So that's about all I've got to say on that. Councilmember Dragisich.
Yeah, Mayor and fellow councilors, I think, you know, we see some communication about this issue, but we already made this decision a month ago to buy the property. And so we have a signed purchase agreement. Now we have to determine the best way to finance that.
Yep.
And we determined internally that funding it through an internal loan made the most sense, and I agree with that. I think it still does consistently, rather than go out in the bond market and pay bond issuance costs and higher interest costs and things like that. So I think that's the most efficient way to deal with it. I also think that, you know, the projected impact on the average home was done, you know, based on what we know today. And as the community grows and develops, that number will come down.
True.
Through development. And like you, Mayor, I believe it's an investment in our future.
Right.
It was in our Parks Master Plan, went through a process, a public process. People go on the internet and talk about what they want to see in the city. And if the ball field project we're looking at here was one of the recommended parts of that Parks Master Plan. So there was community involvement when we developed that plan. All the discussions about buying the land, decision to buy it was done at a public meeting. And so I think we had a process that in my mind was pretty open, and we're following that Parks Master Plan. It's unfortunate, and you have to recognize that not everyone agrees with everything the city does. We'll never get to that point unless we say we're just limiting property taxes altogether.
Right.
But we'll always have decisions that people won't agree with. But I think there was adequate public support through the Parks Master Plan, through our discussions, should we buy the land, not buy the land, the properties we looked at. I think we talked about how we're going to use that $1 million and expand the parks 7 or 8 times at council meetings. And so I
Well,
feel-
and quite honestly, prior to you coming on council, there was an effort to find other parks in which that could be increased, and that the general sentiment at the time was that we weren't really getting any increase from what we would do to any of our current parks to, I guess, make it that much better, so.
In our Parks Master Plan identified, there was an inadequate supply of the type of baseball fields we're talking about as well, within our current resources. So I think it's a good decision. I think making the interfund loan makes the most sense. And we still have to develop a plan, how we're going to support actually building the amenities we want on that parcel. But that's for a future date and time.
True.
And I fully support our decision to go ahead and do this interfund loan.
All right. Councilmember Holtz.
Yeah, I was surprised that some of that feedback came in, I'll be honest, in that, again, the origination of this was the $1 million from Royal, and this was 2 councils ago when we were having those discussions in public regarding how to use the $1 million, and it was fitting a square peg in a round hole. It was not a lot of bang for the buck. In our 2009 Parks Plan, we identified a sports complex. In the 2040 Comp Plan, it identifies a sports complex. And the fact of the matter is, the land purchase was discussed at the last meeting. Again, this is how to finance. I fully agree with both of you. I think this is the most effective way to do it. But I think we also need to realize land prices will only go up.
Yep.
And we are already short on fields today. We are short on fields 2 years ago. We were short on fields 5 years ago. And to do nothing is not okay. Like, there are members of our community that we all have spoken with. They may not have shown up here last week. They may not have shown up previously. They were involved with the Parks Master Plan. They have spoken with us in other instances. Members of the community have indicated, and the data shows it, the need is there. The need was there years ago, and it will only get worse. So inaction is not acceptable. And again, the loan transfer is, to me, the best option for it. And the next step is then going to be seeing what can look like from a concept, and then doing the surveys with the community for what should be there.
All right, so I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2025-016, approving interfund loan and fund transfers for land purchases. Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right, I'll call the question. All those in favor of resolution 2025-016, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, resolution passes. Thank you. Council reports. Councilmember Dragisich.
No report.
Councilmember Holtz.
Thank you to the fire department for going out to Cimarron last week in the frigid cold and making sure that the lives of residents were protected. And thank you to all the residents who have been involved in doing meal trains, donations, bringing clothes over for that family. They lost everything.
That it?
Yep.
All right, well, Councilmember Holtz kindly invited me to a local community event where they wanted some discussion on water, and while I was there, obviously Councilmember Holtz provided a breadth of information for him, but it was really, I didn't know that the Tri-Lakes Home Association, but they get together regularly. They have community parties, they got a newsletter that goes out, they have neighborhood watches set up for each other, and it's been around for 70 years. So I thought that was a real testament to neighborhoods getting together and, having a little community within the city. I thought it was really cool, and it was enjoyable to meet with them and be able to answer some of their questions and just see that dynamic at work. So the other thing I would like to make sure everybody's aware of is this is National Engineers Week. So if you see your engineer, even though they don't want a hug, you might want to give them a hug. And then you'll know that the engineer is outgoing and social if when you're talking to them, they stare at your shoes instead of their own. So, Councilmember Hearn.
Do you want your hug right now?
We can wait till after.
Okay, we'll wait till after. Well, yeah, well, thank you, National Engineer. Thank you, all you engineers. Other than that, no report.
All right,
No report.
no report. Julie? Carissa?
No report.
No
Jason?
report.
Nina? Carissa?
There's a Q4 financial report unaudited, of course, in your packet if you have any questions.
All right, Chief Kalis.
I just wanted to touch base on that home fire we had last week. I did want to express my appreciation to our responding departments, Oakdale, Stillwater, Bayport, Woodbury, Lower St. Croix Valley, and Matamidi. The extreme cold temps create havoc on equipment, trucks, and personnel. And all of our crews did a good job. We had no firefighter injuries. We didn't encounter any issues on the scene. But do want to express my gratitude to a quick-thinking teenager for alerting the family and just remind everybody that smoke alarms do matter and do save lives. So that was definitely the case in this situation.
Good message, thank you. Director Powers?
No report.
No report.
All right.
No report.
No report. All right, there is future agenda items in our packet that's listed online. As Finance Director talked about the Q4 financials that are in there as well. With that, I'll adjourn the meeting for this evening, February 18th. Here, well, I'll show you this.
They really have a week for a